This as a graphics. In this particular tutorial, I want to talk about one of these tools in Pixellab, a very important tool, very fascinating tool, which most people don't actually use it for their designs anyway. Is the perspective tool. Okay, now let's just explain. I'll be using images and text to explain. Okay, for example, now if I'm to insert a particular design into this area, okay, how do I achieve that? So I'll just come here and bring one of a design which I made, my recent designs. So let me bring in this one. This is not actually mine anyway, so I can either rotate it this way but you can see I still need a lot of work here. So some people actually do this kind of thing to achieve tremendous result. But okay, let's just go ahead with the perspective tool. So I'll come to perspective, come here, enable here, so that I'll see what I'm doing. I'll position this one here, then I'll move this one here, I'll move it here, then I'll move it here. Okay, now you can now see what I just did. So it is like it's covering that cover. All right, so this is how you can achieve using image. If either you're making use of a signboard or whatever you're designing, let me just copy this. Okay, and let me just hide this other one and this one and use something like this. So I'll just use this one here, and okay, let me lock this one. I'll come to perspective 2, then I'll just edit it. You can see I'll just stretch it out. Now I can easily scale my the design in with perspective 2. So I'll just come here and scale it down. I'm not seeing that my hand, the area that's actually working, my hand. When you actually understand how to make use of the perspective option button very well, you will. Okay, so now this is where the rubber hits the road. So you just have to be careful with this particular option, and I'll just manage it like this. So you can see it's quite beautiful, and I've kind of made it to fit in with that particular design using perspective tool. If I had just said, okay, let me bring in back the design again, I don't want to tamper with the what we've actually done. So if I say I want to do this one, I can either scale it like this. This is far better than the perspective. I just hope you kind of understand what we just did. There are times you have to maybe you want to use for a design post, like a mock-up, so you just have to get your image. Probably the signpost is somewhere around there. I'm not having any mock-up now, which I would have really loved to use. Let me get a mock-up. Okay, so I have my mock-up downloaded. So this is what I mean by mock-up, like a signpost like this. So let me just lock this in, let me just bring in a fresh design. Oh, should we still make use of that one? Okay, so to achieve this result now, I need the perspective tool. There's no other tool that can do it but other than the perspective tool. So I'll enable it. If I do not enable it, I can actually be moving it here, but I won't be seeing what I'm doing. So when you enable it, you actually have a better view of what you're doing. Okay. I don't know if I actually got it right, but okay. So let's just hope I'm right. I'm correct with what I just did. The perspective. Okay. Okay, so we have this. So it's not that perfect, but I guess you understand what I'm talking about now. So you can see succeeded in putting this image, this design on a billboard. But there are some websites you can actually use in achieving this result very, very well, which is very, very perfect. Okay, now let me just go straight for my text. How do you edit a text with perspective? Now this is kind of difficult. You understand that when you're using text in Pixellab, you don't come with options as perspective. Your text does not have options in perspective. When you bring in a text, let me just bring my brand name, Zaxis. Okay, so when you look at the option, you're never going to see anything like perspective. Okay, there's perspective. Okay, so we can just scale our text too easily with, so I can come to color. Okay, come to the fonts. Yeah, there is. Okay, the particular option I want to talk about, I'm still going to talk about it with the perspective tool. It doesn't work in perspective tool. I have to, alright, perspective. If I'm going to stretch it out this way, let me enable, so you can see without enabling it, I'm not actually seeing what I'm doing. Now this particular way I'm doing the text, so this is more or less some things you can do with the perspective tool. You can also make your design to appear to be flat on the ground using the perspective tool. For example, let me just bring this here, hide this, come to this option, perspective, enable, then make it flat like this. Okay. So it can appear to be flat on the ground using the perspective tool. You don't use any other tool for this other than the perspective tool, so it kind of flat on the ground. Now there was a particular design I achieved some times ago using the perspective tool, but I will make another tutorial for that one. Right, so this is more or less one of the things you can use the perspective tool to achieve in Pixellab. So I've succeeded in doing this one, and if I now bring in this design on it, so you can see it's standing on it, so you can achieve this other than it with the perspective tool. Okay, now let me now talk about the effect which when you talk about that you can't use the perspective tool to achieve. You can use actually, for example, if I want to use my text, maybe let me just write something that has to do with small letter Zai. Now let me use one particular, okay, let me change the color to black and change it to arsenical or tan pale. Or arsenical trial. Okay, I'll stick with arsenical trial. Right, so for example, I want this text and I want to get rid of that I. So how do I do it? Okay, so I always try and make sure my text are at the center, but this one is not necessary. So the next thing, I'll just copy it, also position it here, then I'll now merge the two of them together. And once I've done this one, I will just come to eraser, erase that dot. Okay, in case you don't want it, but it's not necessary. Now you can see we've achieved this. Then we can also use our perspective tool on it. So if you want to achieve something like, okay, so this succeeded in achieving using the perspective tool. Alright, so that's all for this tutorial. We'll see in the next video. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button.